formally begin when the numbers come up, the time does. So I know that here we go. Shalom Aleichem, Kag Sameach. This is Mikael Korban checking in for the last entry of the Israel Chronicles. I want to first and foremost give all praises, give all esteem, all honor, and thanksgiving to El Elyon, Yahuwah, Elohei Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Also to Mashiach Yahushua, Baruch Hashem, and to the Ruach HaKodesh. I am currently sitting at the Paris airport in the K Terminal 2E. Sitting here waiting for my flight to board at about 3:50. It is roughly 7:30 here in Paris. And so, as I'm sitting here, I'm just going to kind of wrap up my thoughts. Beginning with the last 2 days, I haven't made some entries in a while since we went to Yerushalayim about 3 days ago on the Feast of First Fruits. And actually, I'll go back to there. I'm going to go back to, to the Israel, to the Jerusalem experience, and then I'll go to the experience at Nazareth the day after. And then yesterday we went to Dimona. And so Jerusalem was amazing. It was the highlight of the trip as far as getting out and seeing sights and encountering the Spirit. And the interesting thing about that was that we went on Yom Sheni, which is the second day of the week, on Monday. It was the third day of the Omer, okay, counting the Omer until we get to Shavuot. It was the third day. And being the third day, that is what they call Chag Bikorim, the Feast of First Fruits. Now, the deep thing about Chag Bikorim, prophetically speaking, is that that is also the day of the resurrection of Yahushua. And so being that that was the day of first fruits, and we had found ourselves as a symbolic offering to Yah in the old city of Jerusalem, getting to a place near the temple, the Mikdash, Beit HaMikdash, the house of set apartness. It was a truly blessed day of many divine appointments. We entered the Damascus gate, and I'm sure if you've seen the video, you've kind of experienced it vicariously. But upon entering the Damascus gate, for the most part, because we weren't even supposed to go into the Damascus gate, we were trying to go into the Jaffa gate, but because of some different things that they had arranged, there was supposed to be a priestly benediction that was to take place on that day by the European Kohanim, or the priestly class. They had some entrances blocked, and so we had to go to the Arabic quarter and go in through, the Arab quarter and go in through the Damascus gate. So upon entering the Damascus gate, we're kind of just walking in. Sheb does like a double look, and he sees this African brother, this Afro-Palestinian, whose name is Ali Jeddah, or Jeddah. And he is a tour guide. He is a indigenous individual of Jerusalem. He lives there, and his people have lived there for generations, he said. They came from Chad and Senegal and some other places, making a pilgrimage there, but they ended up just taking up domicile there. They live there. Of course, their quarters is what he considered to be the hidden side of Jerusalem, the African quarter. Because if you think about it, there's 3 quarters. in Jerusalem. They have the Arab, the Muslim, the Arab, the Jewish, and the Christian quarter. Um, but no one talks about the African quarter. It is the hidden side of Jerusalem. And so he went on to give us a full rundown of the historicity of Jerusalem as relates to African people and our original presence there. You know, in Africa, as a matter of fact, Jerusalem, Israel is Africa. So we sit and talk with him for about 15, 20 minutes, and he just happened to be there. Sheb had been trying to get with him for a while. He is a part of the prisoner gate, is what they called it. They've actually since changed the name since the interview took place because it was a house that hosted the Africans that lived there. Short story shorter, we encounter him on this day, on this appointment, on this day of first fruits. So from there, we're about to, walk out of the Arab quarter, and we hear chanting uh, for the call to prayer by the Muslim, and it's a beautiful sound. The person who sings the prayers over the loudspeaker, it's just bone chilling. It is powerful, truly powerful. So we experience that. We walk around, we go to some shops, then we get to the Western Wall, and we're talking about, this is Herod's wall, it's an Edomite wall, which it truly is. We didn't really, we didn't pray there whatsoever, but we were there and just recording some things, and all of a sudden, another African brother comes into us. Well, he is a African in the diaspora. He's an Israelite. So we got a Muslim perspective, and now we're getting about to receive an Israelite perspective from Sarah Madiel ben Yehuda from Demona. And he goes on to show us a picture from 1928, I believe, of the Western Wall area, which was called the Moorish Quarter. So these were Moors. And what happened is, in 1948, when Israel uh, got that land from the Ottoman Empire, they ended up razing that entire area. They destroyed, in 2 days, they bulldozed the entire Moorish quarter and just displaced them. But indigenously, that land, that ground where the Western Wall of Herod is, was occupied, was inhabited by African people again. And so he goes on to share lots of other information, which is, recorded on the actual Visions of Jerusalem video. But as we're wrapping up, we go outside, and he's still outside, and he wanted to show us something. And this is where it completely just, took on a whole different life of its own, because it demonstrates something that the world needs to know. He showed us this plaque of the first Ashkenazic chief rabbi of the IDF and eventually of Israel. And the Vilna Gaon is his name. And it's in the footage. And he goes on to produce a Jerusalem Post article from 1985, which says that the Vilna Gaon sent 3 messengers to Ethiopia to bring back 3 rabbis to certify or ordain the Ashkenazic rabbis, because the Ethiopians were the ones who had been doing it right all along. And it shows the African origins, again, of what we now know as Judaism. They had completely leaned upon the Ethiopians, Beta Israel, okay? The house of Israel is what the Ethiopians call themselves, because they're not indigenous to that land. They were exiles. They were refugees. They had been persecuted. And he produced this article, and it shows how they did not know what they're doing, and they needed the guidance of the house of Israel, Beta Israel in Ethiopia, to certify and ordain them. And they've taken it and ran with it ever since. Unbeknownst to the world that they are not even close to who they claim they are. They are making a spectacle of this cultural heritage and capitalizing off of it. And it is truly unfortunate that most of the world has been led to believe that the chosen people are not, in fact, the chosen people. And that those who claim to be the chosen people are not that which they claim. So that was truly eye-opening. That was truly momentous. It was overwhelming. But to even make it more beautiful, we're going now to Mount Zion, and we end up going to this Armenian church. And as we're entering to this Armenian church, we go back to the sanctuary, and there is a group of women, and one of them was just singing beautifully. I mean, her voice was so awesome, and it just resonated throughout the sanctuary, whose acoustics were just set up for that. And it was just a powerful experience. We first heard the Muslim prayer, then we heard the actual Armenian tradition of Christendom. I don't know what she was saying. It sounded good though. It was beautiful. But as we're leaving on Mount Sion, we're on Sion. Of course, the enemy had to show itself. Old Caucasus member, Caucasus inhabitant, now occupying Jerusalem, was sitting down, and we walked by him. He's like, yeah. What's up? So we just look at him in disgust and was just like, you're ignorant. I told the man, you're ignorant. My ox head was like, well, you from the Caucasus Mountains, right? You from Caucasus? He didn't say nothing. He was just looking at it. He said, y'all used to talk like hee-haw, and just really returned the foolish, I won't say foolish, but returned the favor, returned in kind his response to us. And so, that went on for a little bit. We ended up leaving. Then we go up, actually, to Mount Sion, experienced the room of the Last Supper. We experienced David's sepulcher, King David's sepulcher. We go on to Mount Sion, the actual peak of Mount Sion. We pray. I put my people's prayers in a nice little place so that they won't be interrupted, and they can prayerfully go up to Yah. So that was placed strategically on Mount Sion. So we finish that up. We come down, and the dude's there again. And he's looking at us. So Sheb was like, your people from the caves. He's like, no, you from the caves. You from the caves. And Sheb ended up like, whatever, Goy. You Goyim. And he was like, you a liar. You liar. He just got hot, right? So when he got hot, you could just see that the spirit of Satan was just like strong on him. And Satan had to show himself, because whenever the children of Israel, the children of the Most High, assemble, of course the enemy is in the midst, the adversary is in the midst, and he really presented himself as an adversary. That spirit was fleshed out, exposed and rebuked. And I told him before I left, I was like, you are going to bow one day. And I got on my knees and told him, this is going to be you. You are going to bow at our feet, unmistakably. So, we're getting ready to leave and wrap up our pilgrimage to the old city of Jerusalem. And I look over and see this yellow and white flag with this crown and key cross on it. I'm like, man, that's the Vatican flag, yo. And so Sheb and I looked at it, was like, dude, this is the palace that Daniel speaks of, that would be between the sea and the beautiful place, which is speaking of the temple. So we ended up going over there and getting some footage of that, man, and it was just, they got that laid out. The big idol statue of Virgin Mary and the child, Madonna and child, it is laid out, and this is the palace where the papacy will seek to seize control of Mount Sion and the entire old city, as a matter of fact. That is where the anti-Mashiach is going to place his throne. And it's just deep, man. So The Jerusalem experience was powerful, and before I forget, when we were leaving, there was a brother who came up to me personally, and he was like, "Are you a believer?" So he was like, "Shalom, hallelujah." I was like, "Shalom." He said, "Are you a believer?" I said, "I believe." Yeah. He said, "Do you believe in Mashiach Yeshua?" I was like, "Do you?" He's like, "Ken, I believe in Mashiach Yeshua." So do you? I was like, "Yes, of course I believe in Mashiach Yeshua," because I didn't know what the brother's angle was particularly at first. And so he wanted to be like, "Hallelujah, hallelujah." I used to have it easy at one time, but now it has gotten hard, with the conflict that's going on between, of course, the Israelis and the Palestinians. And I've been out of work for 2 months, and I just want you to pray for me and help, and I know that everything will be all right if you pray for me. I was like, okay, Beseda, or in order. I was trying to give him 5 shekels, and he was like, no, 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 I do not want your money. I just want your prayers. And that spoke volumes because people know who we are, and they know that we are Yah's covenanted people. The unfortunate thing is we don't know who we are, and we don't know what our roles and our gifts and our blessings and what our responsibility is in light of all that. In addition, um, this will confirm the next day's experience to the Jordan, the Yardenite. Um, Whereas we get down there, and there are a group of Africans from all over South Africa, Kenya, I believe they were from Zimbabwe, South Africa, some other areas in their southern region of the continent. And they know who they are. Elder spoke with one of the women and said she knows she's of the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. She knows that's also us in the diaspora. And she was down there praying for the assembling of the 144,000. And she said, I am going to make sure that I find myself living in this land in position on that day, which are the feast days. He said, I'll make it to this land every year 3 times on the feast days. This is a sister talking to elder, you know. So it's like it completely boggles my mind that everybody who is of African ancestry, who is of Israelite ancestry, African Israelite ancestry, knows who they are. But we in America, who's supposed to be the most advanced and the most, vanguard in mostly everything, don't even know who we are. And what we're supposed to do, and more even importantly than that, is where we are supposed to be. We don't even know this stuff. And it's killing us, literally. We're dying in the land of our enemies, in the land of our captivity. And that's not what's supposed to happen. So Jordan, really just pointed that out to me. We go to Nazareth and we see, a beautiful city from a vantage point of heaven. And it's heaven in so many ways. And that was one of the first videos I made here when I was in France. I'm going up to heaven. I'm on my way to heaven. And it was truly a heavenly experience. And so, want to conclude with the thought of Damona. And, you know, I'll say this. If you don't understand the significance of Ben Ami and Damona's accomplishment of actually repatriating to Israel and establishing a community, a viable community. No, it's not perfect. There's a lot of issues there. There's a lot of issues everywhere. But what they have established in the midst of hostility and continued adversity, it speaks only of the presence of Yah in that matter. When you look at other repatriation movements or you look at other Pan-Africanist movements, none of them have been successful. None of them have been successful as far as self-initiated. You can look at Liberia and the establishment of Monrovia and things like that when James Monroe, the president of the United States, established a colony himself for repatriates or expatriates in America to go back to Africa. But when you look at the self-directed and the self-determined Pan-Africanist repatriation movements, the only successful movement in history is with Ben Ami and Damon. Now, there are some things that we don't necessarily agree with in terms of some of the ideologies that are present there and some of the doctrines that are taught. Respectfully, you know what I'm saying? But we're brothers, you know what I'm saying? And they're Pan-Africanists. And they're working with all the African people in that land, and they're producers. They have their own industry. They have warehouses where they produce ice cream. They have warehouses where they produce tofu. They have warehouses where they produce cheese. They have their own clothes factories. They have their own soap and toiletry factories. They're doing everything in a collectivist and a very uh, uh, independent fashion, of which is allowing them to be self-sustained and self-propelled. And you have to respect that, bare minimum. You have to respect that. And they're declaring to the world that they are Israelites. And Sar Ahmadiel, who we met at Jerusalem and we also sat down with yesterday, has said when you look at these other Pan-Africanist movements, particularly in America, these so-called Kemetic people, none of them are thinking about returning to Egypt and making a claim that they're Egyptian. None of them will. They will not even think about. They won't even do it. They're not even thinking about it. But they're proclaiming that we are an ahistorical people, and we have not contributed anything to Pan-Africanist liberation. And that is the biggest crock of nonsense that can ever be uttered out of any sound person's mind. It is complete falsehood to say such, because we are the only community going back to the Garvey movements, which was fueled by and large by Israelites, Josiah Ford, Matthew Wentworth, both Rabbin, rabbis. And the reason why we had discussed yesterday at the Pan-African movement and that our liberation has not materialized is because it's the lack of spirituality that exudes throughout these movements. We have divorced ourselves from a spiritual connection, and it is only through divine inspiration. It is only through the favor and the guidance and the mercy and the power of the Most High that we will be able to truly experience our liberation. Otherwise, we're only blowing hot air and not inflating anything other than our egos. And so, you know, we have a lot of work to do, man. Israel is a beautiful place. It's home. That's all I can say. It's home. On that note, too, just a little sidebar. Man, my sister Nakia, Sheb's Isha, Sheb's wife, is a genius. She has and I can't forget the other artists in the city, Yaleach, Nahamiah, Micholel, and everyone else who has their own gifts and abilities down there and their talents. Little Mikey Jr. with his drawings. I mean, it's a wealth of talent in Israel waiting to be revealed to the world for the upliftment of consciousness and the revelation of the truth of who the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob truly is. But all that to say is we had the fortune and the opportunity and the ability to produce 3 hot tracks. The first one that we did was called Let My People Go, which is our theme song now, completely a theme song. We have another track called Well Done, which is truly a moving and stirring track. I believe I spoke about it. And then we just finished a track recently called I Don't Want to Go Home. Or Already Home. Excuse me, I'm stretching. It's called Already Home. And it is also another awesome track. Got a little coffee, excuse me. But man, the song is just touching my heart right now. I mean, it's a bittersweet feeling that I have to return to Sheol, to the land of the dead right now, and leave the land of the living. I mean, it is 2 different realities. I mean, I can't really. You have to really see it for yourself to understand the situation there. I mean, it's as such where children are outside at night walking around, and children as young as 5, 6 years old, 10, 11 o'clock at night with no worries. I heard not one gunshot while I was in Ashkelon. Uh, People can't drive to save their life. They can't drive, but the way the society is in Israel, it is much more laid back, much more at peace, at ease, less tension. Now, people stare at you. I mean, it's not perfect, and that's what we have to come in and establish it as the kingdom. But it is an entirely different society than the United States of America. I feel tension every day in America. I feel, like it's an imminent prospect of disaster around every corner in America. I feel like that. I really, really do when I'm in America. And I fear for my children most especially in America. But the beauty is in Ashkelon, we're developing a community, a trusted community, a loving community. And there has to be some things that are worked out, of course. The human element always has some complications. But the fact of the matter is, there's a gang of children that are growing up together in a culture that is based in morality, that is based in truth, that is based in love, that is based in justice, that is based in righteousness, that are coming into their own. They're speaking their tongue. They're speaking Hebrew and English. And they are gaining a mastery of this language, which will cause us to remember so much that we have forgotten, because language is intimately connected to memory in historical realities and consciousness. And so, opening up this part of our mind that has been closed off from us and taken from us with these children and this next generation, it's their land for the taking. All we have to do is put them in a position to become the masters that Yah has called them to be. And that can't take place in captivity, I guarantee you, because there's not a connection, a true connection that we have with the land of our exile and the land of our punishment. But this land that I just left is our home, and you feel it, and they know it. When they look at you, they're like, how does this nigga know to come back to this land, particularly on this feast day, and walk around with such confidence like this is his homeland? We removed this nigga over 6,000 miles in 2,000 years from this land. And he's back. He's back, she's back, they're back. Only Yah could do such a marvelous work like that, and it is written. And all that is being done right now is the fulfillment of prophecy, and we have to make that fulfillment a reality. We are the ones who have to make that a reality. It's not going to happen any other way. If we think that we're just going to sit back and let things happen, we're badly and terribly deceiving ourselves. We have to be actively engaged in this. This is a participant sport, as Elder said. It's not a spectator sport. This is a participant sport where you have to engage the commandments. You have to keep and observe and guard them. So there's 3 things you got to do. Keep, make sure that you don't do anything else that would jeopardize you not worshiping Yah. You have to guard in that you protect them from yourself, most especially, but from outsiders as well. And then you observe them. You do them. You do them. And that is where the prophecies will become made manifest. And this is what we're called to do as the chosen people of Israel. We're to instruct the world of what is clean, what is unclean. We're to instruct the world what is righteous from what is wicked. We have to instruct the world in all the instructions of Torah. And even above and beyond that, we are to teach the world war no more. How to live in peaceful existence, coexistence with one another, according to justice and righteousness and love. And that is a mighty, mighty work that we have on our hands that we can do in the spirit of Yah and Mashiach Yahushua. And the key to doing that is our unity and our presence in the land. There's no other way that that can be done. We can't draw people to life from a place of death. America is a place of death. Israel, on the other hand, and I'm not saying that it's not perfect, again, or that is perfect again, but we have a role to restore some streets and repair some breaches. And that's the way it's going to happen. But man, I miss my family there already. You know, it's truly a bittersweet experience to be here now, going back, because I miss my family in the States. You know, I miss my boys, I miss my wife, I miss my extended family. But we got some work to do. We got some work to do. So to my brothers in the camp, get ready. I don't know what it's going to look like. I know we're supposed to have a conference, not a conference, a presentation next week. So we got to get on that ASAP. So, yeah, we got some work to do. But other than that, you know, I just wanted to provide this last reflection for my Israel experience. This is the 19th and last Chronicle. This is Mikhail Korban signing off in Paris, France, on my way to Chicago. Be staying overnight with my cousins and unfortunately traveling to Kansas City all day on the 7th day of Matzot. So I gotta find some matzah. I had some matzah already this morning, so I'm good with that. But I gotta find some matzah tomorrow. So yeah, man, that's pretty much it. All right, signing off. Shalom alaikum.